Meet José, who moved to the city of Sarandi, a land of opportunity, lush with nature, and hiding secrets behind its exhilarating beauty. This seductive offer included a vast plot of land and the chance to raise animals and cultivate the land. However, paradise hid secrets that would forever change his deepest convictions. José and his family decide to start a new life, leaving the city behind and immersing themselves in the beauty of rural life. Through their connection with the countryside, they embark on a journey of discovery. Friendships are formed, and humans and nature interact harmoniously. The land is their home, and each seed planted is a step towards building a new community. A story of adaptation, companionship, and hope begins to take shape, and with it, surprising fruits and dreams. My name is José. My wife, our daughter, and I used to live in the countryside of São Paulo, but my parents came from the state of Paranoia, where they were born. For this reason, we always wanted to live there. When the opportunity to buy a small property in the city of Sarandi arose, we took advantage of it immediately. We made the preparations and hit the road to move. With every kilometer we traveled, we saw plantations and agricultural areas. However, when we arrived at the new location, we had an unexpected surprise. The dirt roads and the isolation of the place were more noticeable than we imagined. So, we stayed at a neighbor's house until we finished building a small wooden house, still on the edge of the forest that was on our small farm. Once the work was finished, we were grateful to begin this new phase with the purchase of our property. Our adaptation to that new city brought mixed feelings. We had the opportunity to meet the locals, explore the rural landscape, and, with each step, discover something new. The relationships with the locals made us feel like we were part of that place, and, little by little, we became entwined with the community. I remember those long afternoons, preparing the land and building small facilities on the property. It was a journey of continuous discovery, a process of adjusting to the way of life in a place so far removed from what we had experienced before. As the days passed, the region became more and more familiar, and the sense of belonging grew with each passing day. It seemed that, with each effort, our hopes grew within that land. Conversations around the campfire, exchanges of ideas, and starry nights. That was how the days were lived a few months after our arrival in the area. Little by little, the friendship between us and the local residents grew. Invitations were often made for meals, gatherings around the campfire, and occasions where Mr. Bento, one of the oldest people in the region, would tell stories about hidden treasures. The legends of these lands were well known. Supposedly, there was gold buried there since the time of the settlers. The news aroused curiosity, as well as fear. Some of the elders warned us about bad energies, which perhaps we were not prepared to face. Even so, the temptation of finding gold made me think. But it is important to remember that hidden treasures do not always bring us fortunes. Sometimes they bring us problems in ways we never dreamed of. One night, I had a tormenting dream that surprised me in a disconcerting way. In my vision, I saw a road that I had noticed before, a fence and a tree, and at the foot of the tree on the embankment of the highway, something was buried. It looked like a box, and I wondered what could be inside it, so I began to dig, filled with anxiety and desire. However, when I opened it, I was in great shock. It was not a box, it was a coffin. I saw myself there, with my hands dirty with dirt, looking at a skeleton and a pile of gold coins and shiny chains. The sensation was so realistic that when I woke up, my heart almost jumped out of my chest. I told my wife everything that morning. She was as terrified as I was. It seemed that the past was telling me something, much more than just a dream. Silvia, my wife, was frightened when I told her about my dream. She never meddled in dangerous or supernatural things, and she tried to convince me not to touch it. After all, she knew that there could be consequences to my adventures and ambition. However, it was as if I was being drawn to uncover the secret, despite my wife's concerns. I was stubborn enough not to resist the idea that there was some truth to it all. My desire to get the buried gold drove me, even though this feeling made Silvia fearful. A few days had passed since the nightmare, and my dear wife Silvia was not well. Every time she went into the forest to get firewood, she was convinced that someone was watching her. She was so terrified that she ended up being afraid of being alone in the house. This made me sad, but I didn't know how to help. It seemed like something sinister was hovering nearby, and this significantly destabilized our home. Our house, which was once peaceful, was now haunted by this frightening presence. One morning, driven by my damn greed, I decided to go to the place I had seen in my dream. I put an old shovel in the car and hit the road. The place was close by. Adrenaline took over my body as I approached the place. Winding along dirt roads between farms and native forests, I finally arrived at the place. It was exactly like in my dream. The tree, the wooden fence, everything the same. I took the shovel out of the car, and when I was about to start digging, a shiver took over my body. A horrible feeling that something evil was present there. I felt nauseous and a bad feeling. An immense fear suddenly took over me. I didn't have the courage to continue. The fear was greater. I put the shovel in the car and went home as quickly as possible. But something evil followed me without me realizing it. That evening, we gathered together and enjoyed a delicious dinner, talking about the farm. Finally, it was time to sleep. However, shortly afterward, I had a terrible dream that made me feel like I was being chased by something unknown. And when I woke up, my wife was also awake because of my moans and screams. I tried to explain the nightmare to her, but before I could finish we heard a loud noise on the roof of the house, as if something was trying to knock it down. Fear took over us, and so we stayed there, waiting for the moment to pass. Amidst the silence, I began to pray for it all to go away. The sound of footsteps made our roof shake, and I couldn't really explain what was happening. Those noises on the tiles, loud footsteps and a breathing sound that we didn't know where it was coming from. We were desperate, afraid that something might collapse on us. We were petrified. It seemed like something monstrous was on top of the house, and suddenly, the sound of wings beating and the structure of the house shook even more. It was a loud sound, like the beating of wings of an enormous being. It was a feeling of insecurity, because we didn't know how to defend ourselves, and it was then that the sound of wings disappeared into the air. After a short hesitation, I decided to gather my strength and go outside. I looked at the distant hill, and managed to see something unusual. What looked like a giant bat was flying in the distance, above the trees, swaying over the treetops. The reflections of the moonlight illuminated that creature that glided through the air with astonishing speed. In a few moments it disappeared somewhere in the neighboring mountains. I felt powerless to deal with that situation, my mind full of confusion, as I tried to unravel what was before my eyes, a haunting that tormented me for a long time. The feeling of trembling and insecurity tormented me indefinitely. I clearly remember the time we talked to the locals and told them we had seen that creature. An elderly woman named Maria listened to us with interest as we told them what had happened. Her wrinkled eyes had a familiar look, perhaps recognizing something we were saying. When we told her about the bizarre creature, she nodded calmly as if there was something familiar in her memory. She began to tell us about stories she had heard when she was a child. Her father, one of the old residents, used to talk about some creature that haunted that region. However, no one had mentioned it for so long. To our sadness, the story of what they had witnessed was exactly the same creature we had seen. That gave us a strange feeling, as if our experience was not something unusual, but rather part of something ancient that community harbored. It is frightening to think that what we faced may have started so long ago in that location. After everything we had been through, we decided to return to our hometown. Choosing to sell that property was challenging, but necessary. We learned a lot from that experience, but we felt we needed to get out of there. We were looking for a safer environment, a place where we knew what was coming. However, it was not easy to deal with the fear and uncertainty that surrounded us. We were eager to forget everything and start over, but returning home certainly brought us relief and a sense of peace that we had longed for. We have reached the end of this incredible story. It is terrifying to realize that such scary creatures and circumstances can happen in the daily lives of ordinary people. Do you want to be the first to know about new horror story videos? Subscribe to our channel. We are counting on you to share the scariest stories. Thank you for interacting with this fantastic narrative. We hope to see you again. Goodbye.